That was the one you shared. Have you shared that with me, Mary?
I just shared it in the chat as well.
Well, I'm gonna go live.
All right.
Periscope, YouTube, Facebook. Sometimes that Instagram one is on the bottom and it always takes the longest. But we're live.
Facebook and Periscope?
I think we already connected to Periscope. We're live. Yeah.
We are still waiting on Danny, our team leader, to come on, but he will be on in just a second. Thank you so much. Token, do you want to go ahead and start with introductions?
Certainly. I'm Token. My pronouns are they, them, and I've been organizing in Portland with Teresa for just about a year now. October was a year.
Hi, I also use they, them pronouns. I have been organizing in Portland for about 2.5 years, I believe. And I've been fortunate enough to work and organize alongside Teresa Rayford as a volunteer, and I am so thankful for that experience. I have been working with Token as well since October of last year, and I am still a part of Write and Teresa Rayford right now and do Write PDX. Thank you so much for being here to listen to us, and yeah, just thank you.
Yeah, we wanted to come together. Danny, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Oh, are you there, Danny? Did it freeze for a second?
Yeah, the youth director on Teresa. Okay.
Seems that Danny's having some tech difficulties.
But we could tell you Danny's being integral.
Danny, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Well,
okay. It's Rayford's campaign. And yeah, just organizing the youth.
Awesome.
So just a bit, but Danny, do you mind if I recap?
No.
You don't mind? Okay, cool. Danny is our Teens for Rayford person who is the reason why I'm a part of this right now. He is 16 years old and is an incredible organizer, and he uses he, him pronouns. Thanks so much for everything, Danny.
Yeah, and I think I could also say that as well. I think the thing that I've been inspired most on this campaign is the resiliency of our youth. I could certainly say that I wouldn't be here as well for the campaign if it wasn't for the inspiration of Teresa that has also inspired our youth. So that's really cool to see that this has been a longer moment than just us now, that this has been culminating for a long time, that this has been in the works for Teresa to be doing the work and planting those seeds for them to grow into what it is now. So Danny, thank you so much for your insight, and your voice was very impactful. That's cool. But I would also, we came to here, we have a little statement that I'm sure that probably one of us will read, or we could take, I would probably say that, do we want to start with that, Jay?
Yeah, we'd love to share some personal views. We are not the only three that have worked on this campaign and have organized. When I say work, this has all been volunteer. It is taken a lot of people's personal time and energy, and they have chosen to do this work. We have a lot, so many different people are involved, but us three are here today to speak more about the background ends that we've been participating in and organizing. But I will say that we're all volunteers. I would love to start with the statement, since I think that's what most of you here are for. And do you want to just read switch off paragraphs?
No, I think it might be best for just one person to read it all, personally.
So sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Token, then.
You want me to?
I can go then. I'll start it off.
Okay.
All right. To our supporters in the Portland community, we want to thank our supporters, our donors, and our volunteers. Our impact has shown that we do not have to work within the systems that continue to oppress us. While these were not the outcomes that we expected, this movement has created undeniable change. The purpose of Do Right PDX, formerly known as Right and Teresa Rayford, was to empower ourselves and others to elicit change and for Black Lives Matter. The pursuit of Black liberation, Indigenous sovereignty, and to uplift all of those oppressed by systems built upon white supremacy and exploitation. Let's be clear that the results of this election are underwhelming, which is this is the product of two underwhelming candidates. Do Right dared to challenge the status quo, and couldn't be more proud of the work seen each of you take. A group of BIPOC youth led the campaign, and this is the movement we should all be inspired by. Youth are our future, and their efforts to live in a Together, we succeeded in showing that community action matters when we take the time to understand and learn that we can create change. It shouldn't take civil unrest for white candidates to give up their platform to pursue true justice if this was not about their personal political careers. Long before the election, marginalized folks had been declaring, "We protect us." What this election has shown us is that white people specifically think that voting for somebody to do their work is progressive. That nominating, quote, "another white mayor wins Portland" would be a better headline than, quote, "Portland elects their first Black mayor via write-in with help from their allies." Instead, this movement was villainized, scrutinized, all while the Black and brown folks helping facilitate are dealing with the world as it exists. Our hope is for you to know that we wouldn't have risked all we have if we truly didn't believe in Black liberation in Portland. Before people gathered to advocate for democracy via a write-in campaign, people felt that they were not represented by either candidate on the ballot and that their vote was not going to be guaranteed to any one candidate. The write-in engaged and inspired voters, largely youth voters and disenfranchised voters. So there's no one to blame on a lackluster result except two lackluster candidates. Neither candidate truly engaged the voices demanding accountability because neither could truly meet these voters in the moment. Remember, we owe nothing to white saviors that uphold the systems we seek to dismantle, and the idea that candidates' own votes is upholding white supremacy. That these same candidates believe they deserve things from the BIPOC community instead of giving their resources to Black and brown people. Until white people see this as their problem to alleviate, they will continue to weaponize against us using the same systems they have used to oppress us. Accountability is asking if we are okay with this result, regardless of which white savior was elected. If this type of system is for tangible change, representing the people or personal clout. If systemic oppression makes us uncomfortable enough to start taking action, or do we pass the action on to someone else and put up a BLM sign in our yard? Do Right PDX made this conversation of performative allyship unavoidable. Do Right PDX presented an option for folks to uphold the same systems that have gotten us to this point. or to do the work that we have demanded in the streets for over 120 nights now. This has always been about more than one election, and the work does not end here. We started as a group of inspired artists, organizers, and youth. Through bureaucratic red tape, we now exist as a pack. We write PDX. We were forced to navigate financial and legal systems that are difficult to understand without a classist academic background or legal resources. Hundreds of donors and volunteers turned out. Thousands of texts and phone calls were made. New, accountable, and representative leadership is the unavoidable demand. This demand lies outside of the standard campaign and financial systems that uphold oppression. Our campaign raised just upwards of $10,000 and only spent around $2,000, mostly on software and t-shirts. Other campaigns loaned themselves $150K or used taxpayer money to the tune of about $1.2 million. The OAE systems exposes that it largely equates to wealth and proximity to existing power structures. Campaigning is an extremely time-consuming and financially straining activity, two things that marginalized folks looking to represent themselves can rarely accommodate. We have to strip down the systems that have purposefully excluded folks outside the status quo. The implicit nature of raising money in a predominantly white community, specifically from a Black-led campaign, is not lost in how people scrutinize a writing campaign and not upheld this oppressive systems. This rhetoric is invested in downplaying and ignoring Portland's long upheld systemic racism. We believe in financial reform, but not at the detriment of our communities, not during a midst of a pandemic. These values of capitalism will never save those it seeks to exploit. I think the importance of doing activist work is precisely because it allows you to give back and to consider yourself not as a single individual who may achieve whatever, but to be a part of an ongoing historical movement. That was a quote by Angela Davis. The government won't save us. We protect us. The results of a write-in is what that looks like. Our collective actions add up to a bigger impact. High school magazines wrote about us. Hundreds of people made their own yard signs and banners, and we received national recognition to ensure that Black Lives Matter was more than just a yard sign. We're inspired more than ever and hope to see that you continue to do right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for reading that. No, I don't know if it's going to pen myself. Hold on. Yeah, do we want to start off with like how we're feeling? Like what are some thoughts or just all around? I feel like I need to decompress, but like, I don't know how y'all feel about the entire situation.
That we've all experienced. I want to offer this space first, though, to Jenny, if you would like to share your own thoughts and opinions first.
Well, I did find it very telling that, even after, Tressa lost, I had a couple of high school magazines still reach out that were like, we want to write about Tressa. And I was like, she lost. And then, like the youth reached out and they were like, we don't care. Like Tressa's movement and how she's inspired people still continues to live to me.
I'm sorry, it's kind of breaking in and out, but I think you were kind of like talking about just how it's been perceived after the election as well? Is that right?
Oh no, I was talking about like a couple of high school magazines have reached out even after the election, still wanting to write about Tressa and how they were still inspired by Tressa, and how it's telling that even after the loss, we had our chance at this progressive, the only progressive candidate truly, that the youth still reached out and still believe in the work that Teresa has done. And, the younger generation campaigned for her so hard and still continue to believe and still won't give up.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I've always been inspired by how Teresa inspires the youth. So I think that that's also, yeah, I think that that's what I've been most excited about is how much that we have been inspired by other, or how we've inspired the youth to make this change. Because I think there's going to be a very, like it comes a time where we have to make this change happen and stop just talking about it or pretending that someone else is going to do the work on our behalf. And I think that that's what, for me, that's what I've been inspired to do is like knowing that this work is going to continue beyond November 4th and that there's always going to be, yeah, work to do beyond that. So like, what does it look like outside of social media? What does it look like when you put your phone down? Like Teresa's doing that work, she's doing the organizing, she's doing mutual aid, she's providing to rural areas, she's inspiring the youth. So I think that that's like very telling as well, is that we have something, we have a good product that's inspiring to others. And I think that that's what's going to change people's lives. So how do you feel about, I was also really impressed by the amount of turnout, actually, upwards of like around 40,000, 45,000. That's impressive. I thought that this is also something that we have to talk about, is that those votes were not gonna go to Sarah just because they didn't go to Ted. And I think that people like specifically are trying to like scrutinize those 45,000s, but like the fact of the matter is, y'all, like, people, 162,000 people voted for Ted. Like, y'all don't want to scrutinize that, as opposed to like,
I think it really speaks to Portland's climate, as in we would rather scrutinize, a person who, first she's not first they want to scrutinize her for not campaigning, scrutinize her for campaigning, scrutinize her for, people liking her, to the fact that that's what she's getting scrutinized for, is that it was not her, it's the community. The community rejected Ted and Sarah. It wasn't Teresa's behalf of campaigning. And, I think when we talk about fear as violence, as in what played out, as in across Portland were scared, vote across from Ted. I'm going to vote for Ted. I don't know if I can vote for Tressa. Voters across the whole playing field of all their candidates were scared, and then we get fear as violence, and then we end up with the person who attacked us, who harmed our public safety. And I think, how do we had not played into fear? We need to do better.
I want to expand on that part of attacking a BIPOC community-led movement instead. While, we weren't like an official candidate, we're a movement. We're a community-led, pushed movement. You don't have to have a candidate to do a write-in campaign, but our chosen candidate was Teresa Rayford. And this did not begin as just us three or small group of banding together. Folks asked people like us to begin to organize it in a way where we could do even further outreach. And so that's where Do Right came in. And going back to being villainized by other candidates and saying that this was a vote for Ted, you know, it wasn't. It was a vote for us and our values.
Exactly.
Exactly. Our entire group has experienced so much trauma and violence. It is so difficult to work in this city as a BIPOC person and organizing politically. It was really difficult to feel so much backlash. And a lot of it was really just about Teresa isn't a good candidate, Teresa's not a great organizer, and just attacking a Black woman for literally just existing. And she does so much mutual aid work that people do not recognize. We've had people come up to us that are like, I didn't even know who she was in the primaries. And that's because we're not active. We're not as active as we say we are. We're being really performative. And villainizing this campaign, we had a financial complaint against us, which, you know, I wanted the financial statements out there. All of us out here wanted the financial statements there. But at that time where that came, it was a really difficult time for our communities. And we had dozens of volunteers organizing on the background, you know, like at least, 10 of us going into the emails and trying to send out newsletters and whatnot. And so things were spread out across. And we were working to get that organized. And a lot of us are not just volunteering for this campaign, but we're out there every night on the ground, or we're doing mutual aid work, or, doing a variety of things. Yeah, just literally trying to live, moving, working or looking for jobs. So it was difficult for us to get those out there together because of so much outpouring support all at once that nobody expected. And at first we didn't even want to do this style of a campaign, but it became very obvious that we had to, especially within this city. But for that, if anybody needs to have somebody to blame, I will fully take that accountability because, I'm just really upset that
So it went silent.
What was that?
It went silent actually when you were.
Really, I'm so sorry. I am just disappointed to see that a white candidate chose to villainize BIPOC youth and organizers by essentially calling the cops and calling the auditor. And, at that point we were advised to keep it private and keep the financial statements private, but now it's all on Orstar and it's being updated every week. We had to do this and it took us so long because, like I said, we were a large group that are volunteers that did not expect this kind of support. And what, we did it. It took a long time and we're at risk for a lot of fines. And that's just a byproduct of us not being able to join these circles of learning how to navigate laws. Like when you look up the laws and city charters and state laws, they're all conflicting and they're all extremely hard for just, everyday people like us to understand. There's a lot of barriers to get there and none of us wanted to make a PAC, but we were forced to.
And I think it's really telling that, a campaign can get fined over, I believe it wasn't releasing, it wasn't that much money. I'm not quite sure. But, someone like Ted Wheeler can, loan himself hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, the city of Portland won't even bat an eye.
I think that we also had, when we did have our complaints, we had just joined the rest of the candidates because literally every other candidate has a financial complaint or that's been cited. So yeah, Sarah had some, Ted had a lot. But I mean, you go on Orstar, you can find all of it. It's not. And so it's all out there. It's all on Orstar now. It's on Do Right PDX. That's the name of our PAC. So yeah, that's kind of some updated news, is that we created the PAC as a system, because the way that it was working is that you had to register as a candidate committee. So we had to define what was a candidate, literally, and by definition, they gave us about a paragraph of what it was a candidate versus what wasn't. Then we had to decipher what was, how we were in relation to that, and how that was going to be tallied into this accounting software, because they didn't, if we don't have a candidate, like Teresa was not our candidate because she's not she's not out there on the ballot. So we didn't have a way to actually attribute it to that candidate. So there was a lot of red tape that we had to figure out, and had to get some lawyers involved, some accountants involved, all while we were just, maintaining what we were already doing. And I think that it was just meant to throw a bunch of like thumbtacks and Legos while we were gaining momentum, because I don't think that they would have done that if they weren't intimidated by our momentum. I just think it's sad that our $10,000 was scrutinized more than any other thing. About like who do you think is donating to us? Like do you think big donation corporations are donating to us? Like, what are you trying to prove?
That's so funny. Do you think we can accept that? Hell no. Hell no. And there's rumors that went around that it's like, oh my gosh, Ted Wheeler's running this campaign. No, come on, no. Yeah, I mean, it's not like we didn't want to hide. It's just that we literally just did not have the resources in the moment, and we were gathering them. We were working as hard, but what it came down to was Token and I pulling 10-hour days for like 3 days straight to try to navigate ORSTAR, which is Oregon's financial reporting system. We need so much change in this state, and especially in this city, but it definitely begins with understanding the systems that are oppressing us here. Like, watching the primary campaign happen and seeing how Teresa was treated was absolutely disgusting. And it really just shows how Portland continues to treat Black women. Yeah, I am sad that this is still true even after over 100 days of protesting. But you know what? We might not exactly know how many write-in votes for Teresa there were, but the write-in votes total for Multnomah County and Portland were 45,000 or around there. And that's a huge deal. And I really just want to take the moment to not discuss how other people scrutinized us or villainized us or anything like that. I want to take a second to appreciate and feel warm about all of the people who have shown us love. We've had so many incredible people where they've become my family now, some of my greatest friends. And it has just been so wonderful. We've hit over like 300 volunteers or so, and that is a big deal for a grassroots movement. And in addition to that, folks showed up in so many other ways. There were a lot of people that weren't even like speaking to us, like had no connection to us, but did stuff themselves because that's how much this meant to them. And I'm so thankful for those people. We developed a Telegram chat for all of our volunteers to connect and talk over. And it has been just so beautiful watching that come together, because especially during the wildfires, we were all there to lend each other resources. And I think that in my perspective, this campaign has way more love and was extremely successful, way more than it failed. This was an extremely successful campaign. And the fact that so many people did choose to vote for their values and vote with their heart really shows how much we need to listen to those people and start to really take action. We mentioned earlier that this doesn't end. It didn't end on November 3rd. And it doesn't. I don't think a lot of folks know how realistic and it is possible on the local level to pull off a recall vote. While we're not talking about that, but we're not planning on anything like that at all here. But if folks really, really, really want Ted Wheeler out in 6 months, there is always the option of a recall vote. But that shows that if somebody does do that, if people really are fed up with Wheeler, that's how we can start taking action together and really prove ourselves and stop calling ourselves, progressive, but when we're not actually doing it. We're really performative here, and it's really time to break through those boundaries, and 45,000 people were ready to do that on November 3rd.
Cool. I don't have any other, do y'all have other questions, or are we good to go?
I think I can check on the Instagram if anybody has any questions. I haven't seen any come up yet. But does anybody here want to ask a quick question before? We're getting a lot of hearts and love on here. And that's really what I've been seeing, even people personally. Somebody asked the question, what are you doing to take care of yourselves right now?
Oh, Danny, do you want to start?
Me personally, and not others may agree, but I don't like to take breaks. That usually stresses me out more. And I didn't even consider this word campaigning or less activism for what's doing right and doing with our youth on this campaign, right? We did something here where we are able to politicize people who don't even have autonomy or a vote over their own bodies, right? We have young adults who can't even vote, who can't even make decisions and policies about a city or a climate that they're going to have to deal with 20 years down the line. And the fact that we were able to politicize these people and to educate them on policies, and the fact that some of these people knew more about policies than the people who were able to vote, the fact that we were able to do that in a matter of a few months, I want to continue to work with all those people moving forward. And I'm figuring that way out with working with our youth currently.
Right.
I'm personally taking care of myself by doing crossword puzzles. I love to sit and drink my coffee, do a crossword puzzle, hopefully finish it. Some of them have been really hard. I painted my nails, and I've been talking to my friends, and they have been so incredibly supportive and wonderful. And that's how I'm taking care of myself, by, just trying to enjoy their company and doing things that bring me at least a little joy.
And then I feel like I'm just, I'm preparing for a move. I'll just tell everyone now. So I'm actually preparing to pack up this week. So I've been kind of, just starting a little bit of packing, and that's how I've been doing the Maria Kondo's, does this bring me joy? And does this bring me joy? And right now I'm with the election, does this bring me joy? And I'm tossing it in the trash because it doesn't bring me joy. But that's how I'm kind of doing this thing, is I'm just touching and vibing, making sure whatever I touch brings me joy.
We do have a couple of other questions too. Somebody wants to know more info on the recall vote. I just recommend just looking it up on the Multnomah County Auditor and Elections website. We don't have too much information because after this, we are all ready to kind of move on from this. But I do encourage people if they want to, movements matter and your voice always matters. Another person wants to ask about how we can continue to support the movement after the mayoral election. And I think that for me personally, I think that means just, listening, learning, doing a lot of anti-racism work because that's very much needed. And going out there and fighting for Black lives and Indigenous sovereignty and for Brown lives. Like, there's so much you can do to support this. We're out there every night, right? Let's get back out there. The National Guard is here, and we turned out in the summer against the feds then. We can continue to do that now and just keep pushing for more representation of our values and our people. That's kind of just how I feel that we can continue this. Another person asked, do you want to say something, Token?
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that, like, the way that we continue this is actually, for me, it's actually kind of personal because I feel like Teresa has always empowered us to make that change happen without permissions. And so what I've been inspired to do is actually, I've been inspired by the mutual aid going out to rural areas. And my hometown is in rural Texas. And so I'm eyeing my way back home to run for mayor of the small ass town in Texas, in rural Texas, in about 4 years. So like making the change is kind of personal in the regards that like, that's not gonna be for someone else to do. Like we have to make this thing ours. We have to make sure that we're building that community that we want to see, because like it does talk, I mean, we are talking about building a brighter tomorrow. And I think that that's very important to not lose sight that there are brighter days ahead of us and not behind us. But I mean, we have to make it happen. So for me, it's kind of personal. And it's like, I'm actually going to be like giving up a lot of sanctuary that I have in regards to healthcare, in regards to community support, in regards to a lot of things that I have like secured here, but I'm willing to go outside of my comfort zone, knowing that like there's a bigger conversation to be had about eliciting this change and what this is actually about Black liberation and Indigenous sovereignty, trans visibility, and housing for all and climate justice. Like things like that matter. So I feel like it's kind of personal when we talk about what it means. Is like you have to really say it, and then like you don't have to talk the talk if you're actually walking the walk, right? So I feel like people should be doing the work without having to like, I don't know. I'll stop there. But yeah, I think that's what it means for me.
Danny, do you want to say something real quick, or do you want to get on to the next question?
I think moving forward from what I've seen, like I always will go back to this, but like y'all supporting the youth, like every day seeing like, the youth leaders that are out here that are leading these protests, that are like the same age as me, like some are even younger, some are, I've seen as young as like 13 who are like leaders and the people who will be demanding radical change and demanding justice and supporting these people. How can we make these voices heard? How can we demand that these voices are heard moving forward in a space where it's not normalized to? And moving forward, I will be joining a new group, coalition, Youth Strike for
Cut out, Danny. Danny.
Youth organizing. Kyle?
Which youth organizing are you going to work with, Danny?
I think Danny's having connectivity issues. So we'll let him chime back in
Oh,
at the end.
we're gonna use for
Okay, Dan, we'll come back. We'll come back. Somebody wants to know about the final percentage that Teresa got. We won't know. They don't count write-in votes like that. Like, we literally won't know. Like, it really sucks. But I will say that you didn't have to spell her name right. So, like, yes, spell her name right, of course, which is what we said. Best way to secure that vote. But even if you missed an S or something like that, it counted. Somebody wants to ask where we can learn more about Do Right PDX. Well, you can see our OrStar account up there as we continue to update it. So just go onto OrStar and search by committees in there. We can post a little screen recording of how to do that in a more accessible way because it's pretty hard to navigate. And that's for a reason. But we hope to change a little bit on our website and whatnot, but we don't want to continue this as a PAC at all. We really just want to kind of like get a little bit of education out there before we end this. But once we're able to move on from the bureaucracy and legalities, we are ending Do Right PDX because this was the purpose of that. So you can learn more there. But we will definitely work on updating that website to keep you more in the know. It might just be one page though, because we're really not going to be doing too much. But if there's any extra announcements or whatnot, we will definitely be reposting that and let you know. And as of today, after this live, we're changing our Instagram name to Do Right PDX.
I would also say that whenever you have to file as a PAC, you have to give a reason, and the reason was to advocate for racial justice in the city of Portland. So that leaves that is the purpose of our PAC, and so part of that was a writing campaign, but it's also education that we're allowed to do as a PAC now. So yeah, that would be also that's the purpose of our campaign, was to advocate for racial justice in Portland. But again, that's going to look like a lot of different things. And part of that's education, though, and I think that that's where we've always wanted to acknowledge is that a write-in is democratic. You know, this isn't outside the system. I mean, it exists. I'm sorry, it exists outside the systems, but it's not like illegal. That's not like this red thing that like you have to stay away from. And I think that the option has always been there if you don't like the two candidates, and for me, they were not inspiring. For me, I want to place my vote and hope, not fear, right? So like you think about these votes, these 40,000 votes, perhaps 45,000 votes, those people were inspired to do something else. And I don't think that those were necessarily going to be a vote for Ted or Sarah. But yeah, they're different values. So I don't think that that's even in play. And I think that we've actually inspired more people, specifically disenfranchised youth and people that wouldn't normally vote, or have not, they hadn't even registered to vote until, things like this happened. So I don't want to lose track of, lose sight that we actually did some really amazing things. And I'm really proud of like the movements that we've made. And it is about education. So, and all these connections that we've made like, yeah, lots of friends. I know that Danny and Jacinda can add, attest to that as well. But you meet some of the closest people that you're ever going to meet on a campaign. You'll have to bear so much together. So thank y'all for being a part of the campaign with me.
Thank you. And thank everybody else out there. We had a lot of changes happen. Yeah, I'm just thankful for everybody that I met and got to work with. And yeah, I'm just thankful, a lot thankful. Token and I have been very stressed out, and we're sorry for the lack of communication. It just really has to do to all these bureaucratic systems that really suck. I don't know what else other way to put it. They suck. And I'm just so happy to have the teaching. Like, I have been taught so much by Teresa Rayford. I love her dearly. She feels like my organizing mom. I hope you're okay, Teresa, with me saying that. But she's believed in me so much, and she's taught me that, you know, the hate that we receive, in anything we do, there will be hate, but it is all propaganda. You know, as long as you are leading with good intentions and you're doing it for the betterment of yourself, like of others in your communities, and leading with your heart, then just keep doing it. Just do it. You know, Teresa started Don't Shoot. She brought a folding chair to that table. She just did it herself. And let's just keep doing it. Thank you, Teresa.
There's a thing about respectability in politics, you know, and I think that that's also going to be something that like I learned from Teresa is like, a lot of the times for us to elicit these types of change, we have to disrupt the systems and it be uncomfortable for people. And I think that that's very telling of like what people are uncomfortable, or like how comfortable are they to be until it's uncomfortable for them. But like for me, I feel like I've always been advocating for these things, but like I'm willing to like agitate a little bit more than I previously was, because I feel that this is more of a necessity as opposed to just like a choice anymore. Like I feel like these systems are collapsing and they're they're disproportionately affecting people that are already exploited. And I feel like this is like our calling, like rise up working class, like we have to come together and come together and like know that these systems are oppressive and they're not gonna like us agitating them. So like this whole thing about respectability politics for me, that's fine, but like I'm kind of over it because like I don't have to be liked by everybody, but like if we can elicit the change that we can make together by these small impacts, that matters. So like I don't have to be liked by everybody, and like I think that that's something that Portland isn't. I don't know if we're on the same page with Portland, because I feel like there's a nobody wants to be edgy in Portland enough. Like they're not okay with talking about these really important systems about like abolition and defunding the police and like actually meaning it. So I think that that's also something that we have to talk about.
I literally felt nervous today on Twitter to post about something where, you know, the Indigenous Day of Rage was incredible. And I believe that every protest should be organized by Black and Brown women and non-binary people. And I felt scared to say that. Like, that's an edgy thing to say in the protest community for some reason. I don't know why. But those results and what happened and the pain that was happened in this campaign really is just like reflective of that. Yeah, it's just really reflective of that, you know, idea that, you know, Black and brown women don't even get the mic anymore. Like, they don't get the mic. People tell them, no, it's not your turn. Like, just as long as you're not hurting anybody and just listening and always learning, like something that somebody may say may make you uncomfortable. And, you know, sometimes I take the moment to really reflect on what they said rather than reacting right away. And if it's something that I'm either, you know, learning to decide, or something that I think that makes me feel weird, or like questioning if that's problematic in any way or offensive in any way, it's just all about like introspection. It's introspection and listening to yourself and leading with your heart and your love and being open and just a decent human being. Like, can we all just be decent human beings? We're all here together to support one another. There's been so much infighting this entire year, and we just need to learn from each other and listen, because we all want to fight against fascism and these oppressive systems. So let's just keep doing that and push it past here. And thank you all so much.
And while the results may have not been, you know, what we all hoped for, it was, you know, inspiring to see Tressa got, you know, 45,000 write-ins. While not everyone has learned, people who
I think it's frozen. All right. Yeah, I think it's frozen, Danny.
We're kind of ready to end. We've been on here for an hour, I think. And I do just want to take a second. We didn't have ASL interpretation here today, and we are so sorry about that. At least, like, I'm really sorry about that, barrier of accessibility. But when we repost these recordings on Instagram, we'll have captions on there. Unfortunately, we didn't have a second to, there's no excuses. I'm just very sorry.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think that we were caught up in just writing the thing and getting it out here that we didn't even think about those that we're still trying to advocate for. So yeah, we apologize.
We are taking accountability for that, and we will do everything in our power to rectify it right now after this. And we're truly sorry. Everybody still has a lot of work to do. And from the bottom of our hearts, we will take accountability and post stuff with captions after this. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. And thank you all so much for being so supportive of all of us.
Bye, y'all. Do right. Thanks for joining.